Right, shall we go, guys? What we're going to be looking at is creating an artwork that has got something to do with an evening sky, and we are painting in oil this evening. There's canvas, it's a triple primed duckweave canvas, and the point of this evening is to try and be able to make an artwork with simple colors. And so what we've got here, you can see, is white, yellow and red. We'll come to talk about these more complicated ones a little bit later. What we're going to start out with is a palette knife. Very simple. You can use a kitchen knife, but it's a little less flexible. And we're going to start off with that by always making sure that we mix our colors into the central area and take our color into the center as well, but not right into the middle. We want to be able to see what the full variation is of that possible color. So going right from the white through to that yellow. Okay, now that I've got that identification, we don't have much time, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and I'm not going to give away what we're doing too soon, but we're going to start horizontally. Nice sturdy easel to work with. I'm going horizontally, and I'm just feeling what it's like to put that white onto the canvas with a little bit of the yellow in it, going all the way across, and you'll find that I'm now mixing both of those together so that I get a nice blend of those three colors. I'm also wearing a shirt that it doesn't matter if I get paint on it, and I'm working in an environment where I don't have to set it up. And those of you that are interested in doing a bit of art, it's one of the big fives, and that is to be able to get home, and it can't take more than 5 minutes in order to be able to get set up. So you should have a space purely dedicated to be able to make art. I've just taken a little bit of the white paint out of there and added it in again, and we're coming in with just that plain white. Now I'm going to go in again with that yellow. You'll notice I've stopped using the palette knife, which is sometimes a bad habit that develops in not mixing color cleanly, but I know that I'm just using this yellow and that white at the moment, so I'm going to then come in underneath that, and it does develop a sort of a blend on the outside of that white. The nice thing about oil paint is that it blends and it doesn't dry too easily. I think it is the simplest of the mediums to be able to use if you're talking about painting. Watercolor is subtle and you have to think ahead and be quite gentle. Acrylic, you have to move so quickly because it dries so quickly. It is cleaner to work with, but then you have to understand abstraction. And abstract, if you look at it in the dictionary, it just says it's about simplifying stuff. And so what you get the opportunity to do with acrylic is that if you can simplify your shapes and just put on the canvas what you're wanting to do, you can do that. But with oil, you have the opportunity to delay a little bit and have time to come back and blend and whatnot. And now what we're looking at this evening is to try and get, now I'm going to introduce a little bit of this red into the yellow. Now again, I'm taking it into the side, and what happens, I'm getting a light pastelized yellow, and that's a mistake immediately. We have a little bit of a fail there in that I'm wanting to stick with pure pigment, and that's a big mistake that people sometimes make, is that you've contaminated the yellow, which is the pure pigment, with the white. And if you add red straight into that, you're going to get a white pink. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a shirt and we're just going to clean the palette knife off, and you'll see the difference. I'm going to take yellow off to the side, just like we did, and I'm going to add clean red to it. But again, I'm adding it to the side of the yellow, and you'll see the massive difference between that color and that color, where we've got a clean orange that develops from the yellow into red. A mixture of the two beautiful primaries, you're going to get a lovely orange color. Now that's when I can go back in with my brush, which I must make sure is also clean, but we don't really have time with then to be able to clean your brush, because what happens is when you drop it into the tips, it ends up making whatever color you've got on you very watery, and you could go back and wash your brush, dry it off properly, but you then end up losing a lot of the enjoyment time. So there, I've just cleaned my brush off by rubbing it on a cloth, and I've come in and I've found that, you know what, that's clean enough. I'm not going over into blue, so just wiping my cloth to get a bit of that pastalization off. Actually works quite fine. And there we go. Now, I started off with taking a little bit of that color, and I go with the knife side of the brush. It's got flat and sideways. I put it on sideways so it's got a very clean line, and I'm getting that on quite nicely. And then I turn my brush to be flat, so the top half of it is talking to the very clean orange, and the bottom half of the brush is just working with the pastalized orange that's underneath it. And so you get a beautiful blend. And now you immediately see that we've got perhaps a lovely light of a sunset happening in there, coming out into the oranges. And so now I'm just going to go flat on into the orange. And the thing is, it's easy to make a light color darker, difficult to make a dark color lighter. So I've taken what little lighter color I may have had in there, and I've taken it into this yellow in the palette, and it's the light color that might have been picked up off here has gone and been totally taken care of, and it hasn't made any difference at all. And so then I'm able to just now go and I'm wanting to block this whole area in here. Okay, so now if you're thinking to yourself, I've run out of color now, how do I make that color again? Think back and think, well, what did he do here? I did just take that yellow and I put it in there. I add a little bit of the red to it. If I add too much red, because red is such a powerful color, you'll find that, oh my goodness, there we go. We suddenly now have a massive orange, a very deep orange color, which isn't what we had. And the next mistake that sometimes people make is they suddenly add more yellow to see if they can get it lighter. And the problem is that red is such a strong color, or the dark is such a strong color that it's very easy to make a light color darker, but very difficult to get this dark color back to light. And so we're just going to pull that over to the side and know that we've got that quite dark orange there. We take it back from the palette again, we go in with some more yellow, and really whatever's left on your palette, you know that that's the orange color you want. You want to go into a separate area and you find then that, oh there we go, we've got our plain yellow. We're just going to tickle into that orange and we find that, there we go, we've got a light orange again that we were looking for. And that's one of the little stumbling blocks that sometimes we come across. Again, you know that this is a lighter color that we've got in here, so it won't be a problem putting that into the darker color, and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to think, oh there we go. But that's taking too long. So what we're going to do is use the palette knife, which is like grading a road. I'm going to take that color, all of it, which is going to come in here, and I'm going to just put it on the canvas area. And this is what's really quite amazing, and it's really quite exciting about working with oil, is you get that feeling of, you could even put it on with your fingers, but then things get a bit dirty. And it's just a nice quick way of being able to apply the paint. Yes, it does use a little bit more paint than normal, but you know what? It's really quite exciting to be able to do that. Okay, once you've put that lots of paint on, it almost becomes like it is a palette, so you've got that paint to work with. And now the next thing that you might come across, this isn't actually moving the paint very well. It's because it's what's called a sable hairbrush, which is very soft. If we move across to a hog hairbrush, alright, which is a much darker, not darker, but a much stronger brush, you'll find that it moves the paint, oh there we go, almost like a scrubbing brush, and it actually moves the paint much better, and it can tickle into that lighter area and actually go, so you can see that's a sturdy canvas, and you scrub it right to the outside of the canvas here. And it's about scrubbing. We want to be able to scrub that. The next quick lesson we're going to learn now, we're not going to get through the whole canvas, but pulling it through, is that how do we get from yellow into this dark blue purple sky? There are two different types of purple. You get a red purple, which is called a magenta, and if you put magenta into yellow, you're going to get a, let's put more yellow, really exaggerate it, you're still going to stick with an orange, an orangey purple. Alright, you see that graduation that exists there. If we take what's called a blue purple, which is a dioxazine violet, we put that there, and let's take a clean hand, and you put that into the yellow, we find we come out, we end up going into we get a green developing. And that's a subtle difference, is that we want to be able to go from orange into purple without getting the green. It's very seldom you get green in the sky, other than when the sun just drops below the horizon, when you've been sitting on the beach and you see the sun go and you get that flash of green. It's really quite exciting to be able to watch for that. And so what we're going to do is, we're going to take this yellow and we're going to put it here. It's got a little bit of orange in it, because I know we've got a dark orange, so to speak. And then we're going to put a little bit of that magenta onto the side, and we see we're going to go from the magenta, because once we talk to that purple that we want to get to up here, we want to be able to come through the magenta into the orange. So we get a orange into red, purple into blue, purple. And so that should actually be a bit more of a coherent transition. We'll see there. Now let's take our aggressive brush again, and we see we're going to move through from this orange into this red, purple. Okay, and then we're going to come up into that. So I'm going to be brave, and I'm just going to take some of the straight purple and go up into here. And what you'll see is that you get a nice subtle change into that darker sky up the top. And so there doesn't end up being that green transition. I would show you the green, but then it would take us a little bit of time. Now, what we need to make sure is that we've got this beautiful blue that will end up happening above here, which Prussian blue is one of the strongest colors. Now, you got to be careful, because the strong colors are the ones you got to be careful of, because like we spoke about, it's very easy to make this light color a little bit darker. As soon as you throw a dark color into the problem, it's just going to take control of the entire palette. So what we're going to be careful about doing is just saying, hey, you know what, I'm just going to talk to you very quiet. I'm just going to stab it in there, and I'm going to put it right on the outside and see what happens. And you'll see, if I put that blue into just a little bit of the orange-based purple there, we've got green. And if you want to, and if you start putting that, oh my goodness, now it's just going to be a nightmare. And so you've got to be very careful of making that mistake. We want to stay on the red-purple side of the transition. I'm going to pull some of that purple across, and then if I put a bit of blue into it, we're going to still have a blue-purple. Now, if it's a blue-purple, we come across and pick up some of that orange, it still remains a blue because of that. And so there we go, and with that blue, and let's just take care of that. And now, it's quite a big contrast. So we haven't used the white for this, but if we take a little bit of that white and put it into that, oh wow, then we start getting that lovely light magenta color, which is going to be a magenta blue. And if we bring it down to talk to this color, we might get away with it, but we want to get into it now. I'm going to pull more of that blue into there. Oh, we want to be able to get to this darker blue up the top. Okay, so I'm pulling a little bit more of that, and that blue, it's still got a little pickup of that purple in there, but there we go. So we want to get into that. Not only that, what we're going to do when we get down to the bottom, I'm taking the magenta, we want to be able to have a dark horizon here. Okay, now, I want to be able to hold this canvas, because we're going to get quite vigorous with this application of paint. What would you do if you wanted to get more paint into the canvas quicker? We switch back to the palette knife, and we take a nice big bunch of it. But whoa, hang on, there's some orange on there. Let's get rid of that orange, and let's just make sure we stay in control. We've got it's got a little bit of orange there, but we know that it's definitely a warm purple. We take some of this blue across into it, and there we go. Let's watch the time there. Really exciting that we've got this blue purple. I'm going to take a whole bunch of it. It's like grading a road. Alright, and we're going to grade across the surface here. There we go. Now, ideally, you want to almost create the entire painting by being able to do that. Alright, so that, and then we come with our big heavy brush again. And we're just going to swivel that in, so we get, you notice that what happens if we get that blue going straight into the yellow there, we get that orange happening again. I don't really want that happening, but Let's get that now. So we've got this light orangey going into the magenta. We'll come back and look at that just now. We're going to apply the same principle down here, where we've got some magenta coming off of the bottom of the orange. Happened. I've got a little bit of blue on my brush. So what happens is the blue starts talking to the yellow, and it's chaos. So make sure that I could just wipe my brush off on the cloth, or I actually just mix it on the palette to make sure there's no blue left. And I go in with that purple, and what happens? Go into the top and just make it a little bit stronger purple so that it becomes like I'm using the purple and that orange, and it should stay as a nice dark purple for us to work with on the horizon here before we get to the bottom. We're going to come back and look at an entire blend just now. We've got to look at the foreground. So, foreground, it's just before sunrise. Let's take this beautiful dark blue. Alright, we're going to take this dark blue, all of it, and run it across the surface here. Now if you know what you're doing, what you could do is actually take the blue tube and know that, you know what, I'm going to be coming across the entire surface here. I've got this cloud land in front of me. There we go. Cloud land, I know that, let's look at the brush there. We've got this beautiful blue land in front of us. I know that that's what's going to happen, and I'm actually going to now come on top of it and grade it with the tractor and a palette knife behind the tractor, and we're going to go and just make sure that that foreground is nice and dark. Okay, coming out from a vanishing point right about there. Go back to the bigger brush and take control of it again. Nice big brush. Now bear in mind we're what, 14 minutes in here, and you can almost have blocked an entire canvas. So we're going to pull this across, really scrub it out so that we get, making sure that if this becomes our vanishing point, all the furrows are going towards that. And there we go, we're getting that all the way out there. Scrub backwards and forwards. Don't forget to talk to that purple that's just above it. Talk to the purple that's just above it. Let's get it to take a little bit of time and we get into this. It won't take long. You could use a little bit of what's called an artist's medium, which is like a liquid, or even a turpentine. But what you find with turpentine is that, yeah, it's good for cleaning brushes with, but you have to be very careful. It tends to kill the pigment, and you then lose some beautiful, beautiful colors that start happening with it. Now, we've got dark, we've got middle, we've got light. We need to clean it up a little bit. And that's where I can just take that brush, and I'm going into a little bit of white because I know we're going to need to just lighten it up a bit. And we go just in this middle zone here. Alright, let's go into that middle zone. And we've got some of the lighter sky just before it hits the horizon. I did a long line first, just so that we've got something to work with, and it's going to go all the way across, just so that we have that area. And you can see sort of, oh my goodness, now definitely there's the sense of depth that's happening there. If we were to bring that light again into the top there, we can do that. I'm bringing white. Remember, it's very easy to make a light color darker, so I can almost take straight white and put it on top here, and before we know it, it'll become that very dark color. So I've got no worries of just almost using this palette like the canvas actually like it's a palette. You see I've gone back and forward 3 or 4 times, and now almost totally lost the white that was pure white on the palette. Has gone into being, there we go, we get that from that area there. We're going to come out backwards and forwards into the foreground here. So we see the individual. I'm leaving a little bit of a dark line that exists at the back there so that we can still see some of these furrows coming out here. So it's like a field that exists in the foreground. Now we're just going to just scribble that up a bit. Try just so nothing stands out. We want stuff to be able to really. There now, we've got a little bit of a problem that exists. I think, it's suddenly gone too aggressively from orange into into that purple. So now I'm going to make sure we're going to just lighten it off by cleaning a little bit of that very strong blue off the brush. And we're going to move very quickly now, and remember that we're going to take straight magenta, which is that purple that we're using, and we're going to go in here with that magenta and talk to that orange and just say, calm down. We're going to have a little subtle graduation from your orange into this darker color underneath here. There we go. All the way from there. Get that in on that side as well. So that you get that, oh, it's a beautiful subtle blend that starts happening there. And there we end up having quite a nice subtle change. What we might find is that we can bring some of these darker clouds that might exist in the foreground over the top of that. Yeah, and then it really gets quite exciting, because you can, oh, there's a beautiful purple that starts happening on top of that white that's underneath there. And that's what you get which you don't get in acrylic, is that you get that lovely light purple that exists. Be careful that it doesn't dip down, because your arm is swirling. So let's get that to come in there. So it will still remains light there, and then we want to perhaps also create a little bit more light in the foreground, so we have maybe some cross-hatching, so things are a little bit bigger and more visible in the foreground. This is early winter, like we're experiencing here in the subcontinent, where we've got little bubbles of yellow, of light blue there, and that is really quite exciting. Now, if you really want to make it jump out, we've got lovely bits of blue here, this really strong blue. We're going to take that and make that background bounce on top of the foreground. So I'm going to take some of that, what's called Prussian blue, like a Prussian army, for example. You remember that color because it's nice and strong. I'm going to take it straight from the place where I put it on, and I'm going to run on top here. And what I'm going to do, run straight on top, vertical, so it could be like I suppose a forest that exists right on the top there. So we get some great contrasts that exist right there on the front, which is going to push that background back. But on the left hand side as well, we're going to maybe just make it a little bit smaller, so we have even more of maybe a distant forest that goes right down to the back there. So you get that boom 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 down into the distance there. And that's keeping it really quite simple. We used a very simple palette, and you can't go wrong. The problem is now we have quite a bit of paint left over here. So what we're going to do is we be quite bold. Now I'm going to make sure that my palette knife is clean from when we started, and that's it. With a minute to go, what we're going to do is make sure we don't waste any of our paint, but we create some beautiful texture. So I'm going to take that white, it's plain, clean white, and I'm just going to drag it onto the surface of it. I don't want to spend too much time on the canvas, because what you'll find is that you're picking up color from underneath. So there we go, we're going to put that white on. Then we're going to go into the yellow, because that was our next step. We went white into yellow. Alright, we're going to get some really nice yellow that we've got. Some very strong yellow. Just going to come in nicely so it gets it to pop out even more. Plain yellow, straight onto the canvas there. Oh, that's such a beautiful color. Nice and sumptuous. Really, it starts to sort of pack its power on in the early morning light there. And you get it to really start coming out. Then we've got some of this yellow that's left over here. And what we can do is we can go some of that orange that's left over there. Orange, we've got a little bit of that red that's left over as well. Drag that in. All of that's left over. You can maybe go and pull in some of that orange there as well. And so we get a sort of lovely development of color. Ideally, one would then be able to work on top of this even more, and you'd bring some of these subtle oranges on the top, so as the light comes up it would catch the colour as it comes, and the sky, you would get that light catching the sky as the sun continues to come up. That's literally 20 minutes. You only have about 20 minutes before the time escapes you. You've got to get up early enough, go and sit there somewhere where you can see that there's this very early morning light. It's cool. Exaggerate the colors. Really look for the colors that exist, and you'll find that you exaggerate them and you start seeing colors for what they really are, rather than what you think, oh, it's very gray when the sun comes up. It's not actually. Take the time to see the simple colors. And then if you follow that same simple palette application, going from light through to dark, having a little cloth that's ready to take the paint of the brush. If you do make a mistake, you can easily apply from white into yellow, into that orange. Remember, when from the orange into the blue, we want to make sure we go through a red-purple transition. So we go orange into red-purple, and then into the blue-purple to avoid the green. And the same down the bottom here, yellow into orange, into a red-purple to avoid the green, into this beautiful purple. And we added some white into that blue, so we got that sense of depth and distance, and then blocked in straight out of the tube. Really exciting to be able to do that. And then you put the palette knife on top and really spread it out, and then use the brush and then get some of that white into that blue, and you'll find that you'll be able to just tickle some detail into the foreground. Last of all, which you just pull those dark contrasts over the top. Now, obviously you can look for more detail, but 20 minutes, you've got time to get out there and really be quite excited at catching a moment and becoming an artwork. Remember that doing art is not about becoming an artist. It's about being creative, coming up with different solutions all the time, and taking those sorts of solutions into the workplace. You have various elements at your disposal and say, what is the best possible solution for this? It's abstraction, simplification of the scene that you have in front of you, and how can we best achieve that? And you may surprise yourself. Do a little bit of painting, engage some different side of you that you never thought you had, but that are there, and you will surprise yourself. It's really quite exciting to do some painting. We're going to do more of this next week, and we look forward to you joining us. Have a fantastic remainder of the week, and we will see you soon. That's the problem with these things. It's always very difficult to stop and switch them off. Fascinating that the doggies didn't run around this evening either. But they are sitting out really nice and quietly. There's Fenton. Fenton? Hello, gorgeous. And there's also Bella. Hello, come say hello to everyone. There we go. They've been so well behaved this evening. There we go. We'll do a little tour of the gallery later. Next week. There we go, folks. What a lovely evening. Thank you so much for joining us.